Okay, so I will try to be not too long. So I will present pyrochemical methods for fuel cell reprocessing, and will try to show you what is our approach to propose a reprocessing scheme. So we have a molten salt with a lot of elements, solutes, and we want to do a separation of these elements. So how can we do that? The easiest is to separate, for example, a liquid from a solid. So if some elements can be transformed to solid form, solid state, we will be able to do the separation. So to transform some element, some solute to solid, soluble solute to solid, we can for example, do an oxide precipitation of the elements, so they will be solid, and they could be separated from the salt. We can also do formation of a metallic element, and in this case, it is also a solid, in solid state, and we could do the separation. Another possibility is to separate a liquid from a gas from a liquid, so we can transform some elements from soluble state to gas state. That can be done by volatilization, by electrolysis, or by action of an oxidizing agent. And in this case, we are able to separate the gas with some elements from the liquid. Another possibility is the use of two liquids, but non-miscible liquids. It is the case with molten salt and liquid metal. And in this case, we are going to transfer the elements from the molten salt to the liquid metal. Okay, another, it's the same, but described differently. So we have a solute, and how can we change the state of the solute in the salt, which is soluble? We can use several effects, the redox properties or acidobasicity properties. About the redox properties, we are going to change the oxidation state of the elements, and in this case, it can be under a different state, for example, a gas or a metal. So we can use the action of fluorine or chlorine to change the oxidation state of the elements. We can use electrolysis, and we can also use the action of a reducing agent to reduce the elements to its metallic state. Concerning the acidobasicity effect, we can use the action of oxide ions. So we put oxide in the salt, and we are going to have precipitation of the elements. So to look at this effect, it is important to know the chemistry of the elements in the molten salt we have chosen. And to do that, we combine a thermodynamic approach with experimental studies. And the thermodynamic approach is based on the oxoacidity concept, which was described proposed first by Lux and Flood. And it is more or less equivalent to the potential acidity diagrams in aqueous solution. But in this case, it is not the proton which is important, it is the oxide. So the oxide is abundant to ion, the oxide has a high stability with metallic cations, and it is a part of the redox system of oxygen. So it is very important in molten salt, the role of oxides. And for example, we can have water in the molten salt at solid state, and when we fuse this salt, we have formation of oxides. And we have defined this, not we, Lux and Flood, have defined this oxoacidity. It is a PaO2-, which is equal to the opposite of the logarithm of activity of oxide. It is exactly the same as pH in aqueous solution. So here you have an example of a diagram which was calculated. We calculate all these diagrams using a thermodynamical database. And in this case, it is a diagram of stability of nickel in a chloride molten salt. So in the y-axis, you have the potential, and in x-axis, you have the activity of oxide. So in this part, in the right side of the diagram, we have no oxide, and the oxide increases when we go on the left side of the diagram. We are limited on the anodic side here by the oxidation of chloride to chlorine gas, and on the cathodic side here by the reduction of sodium plus to metallic sodium. We have here, calculated for 1 atmosphere of chlorine. It is equilibrium diagram, so it is only calculated for equilibrium. So for 1 atmosphere of chlorine, we are there, but for 10 to minus 6, the potential is here. And we have calculated also the system of oxygen oxide, which is here. And this value, this straight line, depends on the atmosphere in oxygen. The diagram of nickel is here. So we have here the oxidation of nickel, which is stable in this part of the diagrams, to nickel oxide. And on the right side, we have oxidation of nickel to nickel 2+. Which is interesting is to see that if we use a mixture of a gas constituted with chlorine and oxygen, we have this equilibrium, and we can apply a special point on this diagram. So we can use a gaseous mixture to apply in this salt a value of potential and a value of acidity. Here we have the diagram of the zone of stability of nickel 2+, and we see that it increasing when the activity of it's finished.
No, thank you very much.
Oh, no, it's okay. Sorry. Sorry. I'm so sorry. And we have, so when the activity of nickel 2+ decreases, we observe that we increase the stability zone of nickel 2. So we can calculate these potential acidity diagrams, and what is the influence of activity coefficients presented by Andrej this morning. So we have the activity of an element M is equal to the mole fraction multiplied by the activity coefficient of M. The activity coefficient represents the affinity of one element for the salt. So if we have a gamma which is equal to 1, we have no affinity. But if the affinity increases, so it's if there is many connection between the element and the salt, in this case, the value of gamma decreases. And we have, in this case, an increase of the stability range of the element. So if gamma decreases, activity of M decreases, and as we see here, when the activity decreases, the stability range of the element, the solvated element, increases. Okay, so the stability of one element depends on the nature of the salt. If we have this kind of salt like Flynac, We have basic salt. In this case, we have many free fluoride or chloride ions in the salt, and they are going to be able to do a big solvation of the element. And in this case, the element will be very well in the salt, he will be okay, he doesn't want to be reduced or oxidized. He has a very large stability domain. In the case of an acidic salt, in this case, the solvent is going to keep the ions, so to keep chloride and fluoride ions. And in this case, it is more difficult to have a solubility or high stability zone of the elements in the salt. So, depending on the nature of the salt, so the diagrams will be quite different. And obviously, as I said, the activity of the solutes introduced in the molten salt depends on the acidity of the salt. So, one example of these kinds of diagrams. So here we are in water. So it is iron stability diagrams in aqueous solution. So we have here the potential and here the pH. The stability range of water is between this line, which corresponds to the reduction of water to hydrogen, and this one, which corresponds to the oxidation of water to oxygen. So in this stability range, it is the stability range of water. And we observe that iron, which is here, is never under metallic state in water. It is not stable. So it is already under a higher oxidation state. So Fe3O4, Fe2O3, Fe2+, Fe3+. So it is not stable. Metallic iron is not stable in pure water. If we calculate the same diagram in lithium potassium chloride, we observe on this diagram that we have a very high stability domain for metallic iron. But if we increase the potential, it will be oxidized to Fe2, Fe3, and if we add oxides, we are going to form different various oxide, iron oxide. So the stability of one element depends on this, its environment. Oh, sorry. Okay, so now I will present you some thermodynamic diagrams we have calculated in the salt of the MSFR, so lithium, thorium, fluoride, molten salt. And so here it is the stability diagrams of neodymium. And in red, we have the stability domain of the salt. So the salt is reduced here. Thorium fluoride is reduced to metallic thorium. Here we have the oxidation of fluoride ions to fluorine gas. Here we have formation of oxygen, and here on the left side we are limited by the precipitation of thorium oxide. So what we observe that neodymium, even if we oxidize the salt or reduce the salt and put oxide on nothing append to neodymium, it will stay on the neodymium fluoride form. It is in the case of another salt, neodymium here, can be oxidized to neodymium 2, neodymium 3, and we can produce also oxychloride of neodymium and neodymium oxide. So that is in a chloride molten salt. So it's quite different. Gadolinium. Gadolinium, it is exactly the same than neodymium. Samarium. Samarium, we observe that we have two different compounds, soluble compounds, SMF2 and SMF3. But no possibility to do a separation because these elements are soluble, or if we are not at the solubility, they will be precipitate, but not on the oxide form. but we have no possibility to transform it to gas or to metallic state. Neptunium, it's quite different. So in this stability domain of lithium thorium fluoride salts, we observe many possibilities of oxidation states for neptunium. The first one is here, it is metallic neptunium. So we can reduce neptunium into its metallic state, solid metallic state, in this molten salt. We can also oxidize the neptunium to neptunium-4, neptunium-5, and neptunium-6, and if we can apply a very high value of potential, we have gas. So we can do the separation of neptunium by action of potential. And if we can apply this value in this range, we see that we can precipitate neptunium oxide. So there is many possibilities for neptunium to be separated from lanthanides, because if we remember lanthanides, it happened nothing for lanthanides. Uranium is the same, so we can here produce uranium UF6, and it is a gas. Plutonium, so plutonium can be reduced here in metallic plutonium, and we have two oxidation states of plutonium, PuF3 and PuF4, and also two possibilities of precipitation of plutonium oxide. Americium. Americium, like plutonium, we have possibility to reduce it into metallic state, but no gas formation. So the idea is to use the properties of these elements in the molten salt to try to separate them. So here we have a potential scale, and as presented by Victor, the redox potential in the core is controlled by this ratio, uranium-4 over uranium-3, and we can control this potential and then decrease the corrosion. But if we want to do separation, we can oxidate, we can apply a fluoride, not apply, but we can put fluorine in the salt, and in this case we will apply a very high potential value and be around 0, and in this case, in this case we are in this domain of potential, and if you remember, neptunium, uranium, and many other elements will be on the gaseous state. And after, the third possibility to do a separation is to apply a very reducing, very cathodic potential. And to do that, we introduce lithium. Lithium is an element with very reducing power, and metallic lithium can be very interesting to reduce element. It is the reason why we have finally proposed this reprocessing scheme. So we have the first step. I will not discuss about this first step. It is gas bubbling in the reactor core. By gas bubbling here, we are going to remove fission products, gaseous fission products, and some noble metals. But after, we are going to do a reprocessing by batch. So we are going to remove about 40 liters of salt per day, and do several steps of reprocessing. The first one is the fluorination. So we are going to increase the potential and extract gaseous elements, uranium, neptunium, and many other fission products. After we are going to decrease the potential with a reductive extraction step. The first one we are going to put in contact the molten salt with a solvent metal, liquid, which contain lithium. and lithium is introduced to reduce the potential of the salt. First step, we are going to extract actinides, and in a second step, we are going to extract the lanthanides. Then lanthanides lanthanides are in the solvent metal, and they are going to be back extracted in another molten salt, for example, lithium chloride, lithium fluoride, or lithium potassium chloride. And in this case, we can do the precipitation of these elements by adding oxides. So it is possible in these conditions to separate lanthanides from the molten salt. And after the actinides which were extracted during this step will be back extracted in the lithium thorium fluoride, which is clean now, and that is put back in the reactor core. So the fluorination to increase the potential. Here is the fluorination device which was proposed by the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. So it is a reactor. In this reactor, fluorine gas is introduced here by the bottom, and the salt is introduced here. We have a reaction, very exothermic reaction in this part of the reactor, and the gas produced are extracted here in the top of the column. And the gas, we have a mixture of gas, and they are separated on traps which contain sodium fluoride. And depending on the temperature of these traps, we can do the separation of fission products and actinides. About this step, so we are going to do reductive extraction, and in this case, the potential of in the salt at the solvent metal will be very low. So here we have a scheme of what happened at the interface of the solvent metal and the salt. So in the solvent metal we have the lithium, which is a very reducing species, which is a reductant, and which will be oxidized to the salt. And in the same way we have the reduction of the element M from the salt to the solvent metal. And that is very interesting because in this case the metal here is solvated by the solvent metal. So it is not in solid state, but it is dissolved in the solvent metal. And in this case, we are going to increase the stability range of this metal. And using this kind of diagram, for example, in americium, we have shown that we have a very, the reduction of americium 3 to americium 0 is very close to the limit of the salt stability. But using a solvent metal, we are going to increase this limit, which is now there, because americium is dissolved in the bismuth here, in a solvent metal. So it's easier to reduce it. The choice of the liquid metal was done by a comparison of a melting point and a vaporization point. And finally, bismuth was chosen because it is not toxic, it is abundant, and it has a density which is interesting. So our choice was bismuth. So we can give many relation of analytical relations of concerning the reductive extraction. So we have this reaction, and we can write the constant relative to this reaction, and we can calculate it in the case of pure compounds. And after, we can define the distribution coefficient, which is given here. The distribution coefficient is given by the ratio of the mole fraction of the element M in the solvent metal over the mole fraction of the element M in the molten salt at equilibrium. And when we combine thermodynamic data and the relation of the activity of elements, so it appears now the activity coefficients, we can express the distribution coefficient of element M. And this distribution coefficient depends both on the activity of the element in the solvent metal and in the molten salt. Example here of results obtained by Oak Ridge about the extraction of plutonium. This experiment, here you have the experimental results, and these experiments were done in lithium beryllium fluoride molten salt, and we have so this expression of distribution coefficient of plutonium. And when we try to calculate this data, we observe in this case that we have a very big difference when we do the calculation without taking account of the activity coefficients of the element. So it is absolutely necessary to consider this activity coefficient to have a good comparison with experimental results. But if we consider here only the activity coefficient in the solvent metal, it's sufficient, because in this case the activity in the molten salt is not very important. And we observe here that we have a good correlation between experimental results and calculating value, considering only the activity coefficient of metal in the solvent metal. And that is due to the particularity of lithium beryllium molten salt, which is a very acidic salt, and in this case there is a low solvation of the element by the salt. So another thing which is important to calculate the efficiency, it is the selectivity. So it is we have to extract, for example, actinides without lanthanides. So we have to define what are the best conditions to do that. So we have analytic expression to plan how to do the separation. And the last point is efficiency. Efficiency corresponds to the proportion of element which has been extracted. And if we want to improve the efficiency, we can observe that the efficiency depends on the distribution coefficient, okay, but depends also on the ratio of the number of the volume of the two liquid phase. And for example, here I present when the efficiency, which was calculated for 3 different ratios of volume of molten salt over liquid metal. If we have a big volume of molten salt and a small volume of liquid metal, we will have a small efficiency, 9. And if we put the opposite, we have a big volume of liquid metal and small volume of molten salt, we can increase the efficiency. So it is another point which is important to improve the extraction efficiency. Another point is the quantity of lithium we are going to put in the solvent metal. So here we have the efficiency. When we have 1, it is that we have extracted all the elements. When we have 0, we have no extraction. And efficiency as a function of the quantity of lithium in bismuth. And it was calculated for different elements. And we observe that we have a shift between the two families of elements, actinides and lanthanides. So, for instance, if we put 10 to minus 3 mole for a mole fraction of 10 to minus 3 of lithium in bismuth, we will be able to extract actinides without extraction of lanthanides. And after, if we put 10 to minus 1 of lithium, we will extract all the elements. So we can do separation of these elements. Okay, another possibility to improve the extraction efficiency is to do several stages. That means that we are going to put the molten salt and the solvent metal. We are going to mix it. We are going to remove the solvent metal, and we are going to put another solvent metal, very pure one, and we do back a new extraction and so on. And by this way, we are going to increase the efficiency, as you can see here when we did the calculation. So, for example, cerium will be extracted at 90% during the first stage, and after the third stage, it is higher than 99% of extraction, of efficiency. Okay, so some comments. The extraction processes can be studied both using thermodynamical data and activity coefficients. The activity coefficient knowledge, both in liquid method and also in molten salt, is essential. We have to know them to calculate the theoretical efficiency, and we have a big lack of data because these activity coefficients have to be determined in the molten salt of interest. So how can we determine these activity coefficients? So we can do potentiometric determinations. In this case, we have to compare, for example, the potential of a pure metal in the salt and the potential of the metal dissolved in the liquid metal, in the solvent metal. And the comparison between these two potential values is directly proportional to the activity coefficient. As we can see here, when we represent the difference of potential as a function of the quantity of element M introduced in the liquid metal, we have a straight line, and the intercept here is equal to the logarithm of activity coefficient. That is for the activity coefficients in liquid metal. In molten salt, sorry, that is not really important. Okay, yes, here it is the experimental results. We have measured the activity coefficients of gadolinium in liquid gallium, and we obtained this value. And this experiment was done at different temperature, and then we have the relation between the activity coefficient with temperature. So that is experimental determinations. When we want to determine this activity in molten salt, so of the element dissolved in the molten salt, in this case, we are going to put the element in the molten salt, try to do electrochemistry. For example, here it is the case of thorium chloride in lithium potassium chloride molten salt. So we observe here the redox system of thorium, thorium-4, thorium-0. We have the redox potential, and we can compare this redox potential with the thermodynamic redox potential. And the difference between these two potentials is directly proportional to the activity coefficient of thorium in the salt. Another experiment which can do in molten salt, it is the concentration of oxide. We have seen that it's very important to know the oxide concentration. That can be done in chloride molten salt using an yttria stabilized zirconia membrane electrode. So we have a membrane, and we put in this membrane a molten salt with oxide and with an internal reference of a silver wire with a silver chloride. And we are going to measure this potential against another reference. And the difference of potential is directly proportional to the activity of oxide. So here we have, it is an example of calibration of zirconia electrode. So we add oxide in the salt, and we measure the variation of the potential of the zirconia electrode. So we can have this calibration curve. And this calibration curve is very important to do titration and measurements of some fundamental parameters. For example, here we have a salt with cerium chloride, and we are going to introduce oxide and measure the oxide concentration. And we observe that when we add oxide, we have, when we have added one equivalent of oxide with the cerium, we have a shift of the potential of zirconia electrode, which is characteristic of the formation of cerium oxychloride. When we did the same experiments with yttrium chloride, we observe a shift, but for 1.5 equivalent, which shows the formation of yttrium oxide. So the last slide for electrorefining of EFR. So it is in USA. So it is in a chloride molten salt, and we have a metallic spent fuel here, and we do electrolysis between this metallic spent fuel, which is oxidized, it is the anode, and using a solid cathode and a liquid cathode with different difference of potential, we can reduce on the solid cathode the essential of uranium, and on the liquid cathode some uranium, other actinides, and the lanthanides are in the salt, and the noble metals in the cadmium here. So I want to conclude that the thermodynamic approach is necessary to propose a reprocessing scheme. It is important to have an idea of the chemistry of the elements in the molten salt. And this approach obviously can be used both in chloride and fluoride media. And about the experimental studies, there are two kinds of experiments. The first, the determination of parameters, and also we have to do experimental tests because we have theoretical efficiencies, but the kinetic can be different, and before validate the reprocessing, we have to do real test of extraction. Thank you very much.